Today I am reviewing 13 Reasons Why by J. Asher. This is a very contentious novel that I'm sure most people are aware of right now. By the way, apologies for the odd lighting, it is kind of the middle of the day. I'm also wearing pyjamas. Previous videos I have worn much nicer clothes, but it's snowing and it's really cold and I want to be warm. And this scotch needs an ice cube. Make sure you do leave a like and a comment below about your personal opinions of the book. I would love to hear your feedback, even though how much I didn't like this book. I also really appreciate it if you'd like to subscribe, I'm made aware of more book reviews and cooking videos and general vlogging content on this channel. Thanks so much. Now, I did not like this book. I did not like 13 Reasons Why, and I don't think anyone should like this book. And I think if you like this book, I think you need to reread the book with maybe my review in mind, because this is not a good book. I did not have a physical copy of the book to present to you, but just imagine it's here. It's not good. It's not a good text. And I mean that in a multitude of different ways. It is not well written. It is amoral. Or perhaps I should say immoral, because the morals it has are wrong. I'm not even making sense here, but it's not good. I'm pairing this with an Auchentoshan Scotch whiskey, which is perhaps my least favourite scotch in the entire world. And I thought that was accurate to put with this book. Not very good. It's kind of bland and odd and almost artificially peaty. I've got too much of an ice cube. Let me throw the ice cube away. There we go. Oh, I'm sure you can see this. There's something really weird in my whiskey. I think it's the ice. I have very hard water here. It's kind of gross. 13 Reasons Why tells the story of the suicide of Hannah Baker, or rather the things that lead up to Hannah Baker's suicide. A teenage girl who has moved recently to this mad town, I'll get onto that later, and is sexually abused, sexually assaulted, bullied, and at the same time denigrated and abused generally, and then decides to kill herself. And whilst killing herself, decides, I know, I will make sure everybody who's made me kill herself, that's right, they made her kill herself. She didn't kill herself, they made her do it. Every single person should receive a tape. I know, I'm sure you know this because this book has been made into a critically acclaimed TV series. And I say critically acclaimed, I mean critically acclaimed for the first season. And then every other season after that is like 16% reviewed because it is so bad. Even the first season though is garbage. I hate it. But I'm not talking about the TV series, I'm talking about the book. I hate the book too. And the reason why I hate it, first of all, is obviously the message. Obviously, we cannot talk about this without talking about the message. The message is terrible. The message seems to be that suicide is a revenge tool. By killing yourself, you're showing them. And I'm not the first person to make that argument or the first person to complain about that. Of course not. No one is. Probably one of the first things that was ever said about it. The editor was like, kind of makes it seem like you're seeing suicide as a good thing and that it's useful to tell people off. And the author would be like, yep, I mean, what the hell is going on in this author's brain? This is not a good text for dealing with mental health and illness and suicide. Whatever. Alright, we're going to talk about the writing first. I've got, as I normally do, I have a lovely page of writing, of notes that I make when I'm reading a book. The writing is really weird. There's lots of times in this book where I have to pause and go, why did you write this? Just some of the descriptions are vague and strange. Now, generally speaking, with a text, especially with a younger text that this is, there is either going to be, in terms of the narration, an impartiality or a partiality, and that sounds weird. What I mean to say is that the writing will either be more of the author or will be more of the character. Let's take my favourite book series, which you can see in the top right there, it's like the new camera angle. The Aubrey Maturin series. I would argue heavily that the narration of that text is of the author. It is almost like the author giving their opinion upon the characters, while still being with the characters. In other texts, so that an example escapes me, the narration feels like it is of the characters. You often get this with things like, I don't know, Great Gatsby, wherein the narration itself is a character, and thus they are an unreliable narrator. In that idea, the narration is different, right? Whether it's the author or the character, even though, of course, when it's the character, it's still the author, but the design is different. It's both here. It's a narrator, but it's the character. It's so weird. And it's made even weirder by the framing device that the whole book is basically being told in one night as our protagonist. I don't even remember his name. That's how bland he is. He's this weirdly strange, seemingly heavily autistic moron who was nice to the girl who killed herself, Hannah Baker. And so that's why she's on the tape. He's on the tape. He's like number 9, spoilers, on the tape. and he's getting the tape and he has to listen to all the tapes and then pass them along. Blah, blah, blah. And the whole time is being told while he is kind of running around this big town while listening to the tapes and having people follow him and engaging with parts of the story and going to physical locations in this night that goes on forever. In this TV series, it's done over like weeks and months for some reason. It literally makes no sense. He just like listens to like 8 words of the tape and then stops it and then goes about his day. It makes more sense in the book that he does it in one night, but it's still really weird. But you get Hannah narrating because you get Hannah's description of the things in her memory and you get to experience it in that way. But it's so weird. There's just sometimes like the writing is so weird. Munching this is one bit where it's a description of someone munching popcorn, chewing French fries and pumping ketchup. And I cannot describe to you how weird that sentence is to me. Munching popcorn. It feels weird. And like a human didn't write this. And there's times as well where the text will analyse literature. Like Hannah Baker talks about she talks about like some Shakespeare and a William Carlos Williams poem, and they're wrong. Like her analysis of it is wrong. And I'm not sure what I'm supposed to take from that. I know this is a niggling detail. This is from an English nerd. But what's the purpose of misunderstanding the text? I actually think it might be the author misunderstands it, not the character. There's death of the author, blah, blah, blah. But there's a bit where they analyse the Red Wheelbarrow, William Carlos Williams' poem, and makes allusion to the famous line, Romeo, Juliet, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo, and misunderstands them. But I'm not sure it's the character misunderstanding them. I think the author doesn't understand them. I don't think the author doesn't get William Carlos Williams, and that's fine, but then don't put it in your text. And the whole Shakespeare thing is the typical, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo, and the misinterpretation that it's saying where is Romeo, but wherefore means why. Wherefore art thou, Romeo refers to Juliet lamenting that Romeo is of the wrong family. Is a Capulet. Is he Capulet or Montague? I can't even remember. And it's saying, why are you that name? And thus, that's because I can't be with. It's just weird. The writing is weird. But that's beyond. That's in the distance. That's most of it wasn't very good. What's going on in this book? He gets the tapes, has a mental breakdown, and starts listening to the tapes while just sprinting all over the town. He starts getting followed by the person whose job it is apparently is to keep track of everyone who has the tapes for some reason, even though they didn't know each other. I don't understand. This town, it's like in the middle of the night, and they're getting burgers and drinking coffee, and there's just people everywhere in this small town. And it's things that go on, just go on and on and on. He must just be sprinting from one place to the other. It's so strange. And the descriptions of the characters and what they do is so weird as well. I got even a specific note here, page 213. Screaming! The character screams, hammering on something. Calm down. What is going on? It's so mental what happens. I understand that people are dealing with the results of a suicide, but the reactions of the character, he hears a name, at one point it's who's this gonna be? He's getting to the next name on the tape, right? And he's going through it, oh my god, who's it gonna be? And it's well, it's this person because the author she's even said, we'll come back to him, he'll be important later. And then 2 pages later, it was him, by the way. And the framing protagonist goes, oh my god, it's him! And then he vomits out of the car door for some reason. What is going on? There is a really weird obsession in this text with virginity and purity, which is so strange. And I understand I'm looking at it from a modern context and from my own sensibilities, so I'm sure I'm losing some value here. But there's this really weird concept of virginity and purity that is continued throughout this world, despite everyone else having sex, that it just feels so strange. The main character has this, the Hannah Baker has this really weird view of sex. Everyone does. It's so weird. What's going on? Are we living in puritanical America? She witnesses a rape. She's she was about to have sex with the main character, and then she goes, nope, can't have sex, and then he leaves. She just goes, okay, and then he runs away. Whatever. Odd writing. And then another girl, and she gets raped, and what she does is she crawls into a closet and she watches it, going, oh no, she's getting raped! And she just does nothing while this person rapes an unconscious woman. I don't understand where the drama is. Hey, stop that. There's people everywhere who would stop the rape. It doesn't make any sense. Again, I know I'm looking at this from modern sensibilities and my own, I would argue, above average awareness of mental health, But what's going on? No one in this entire world seems to realise that this girl clearly has massive suicidal intent. She changes her appearance, she gets rid of her bike, she does this and this, and she does all these things that they're like, oh, that girl's going to commit suicide, I should reach out to her. And the ending of the book essentially is the main character, learning and taking on the signs, and then going and realising this other girl who is in the background, who he liked once, is going to kill herself as well, probably. And so he should help her. Like, that's a nice moral, I guess. But for me, is the concept of suicide really horrible in this text. And there's one bit within this text that really upsets me, really deeply distresses me, which is the final name on the tapes, which is the counsellor. And the counsellor is the nice guy who's trying to be the counsellor for the school, for the half of the alphabet, as it were. And so she goes to him saying it's his job to stop me killing myself. I don't know why I have my phone here, a phone symbol. If he doesn't stop me from killing myself, then it's his fault. It's so weird and toxic. And she goes into it saying, oh, I got sexually assaulted. And he's saying, I'm so sorry about that. Well, then we need to report it. And she goes, nope, not going to report it. Like, well, why aren't you going to... Nope, not going to report it, not going to report it. Okay, then what can we do here then? What do you mean? Well, if you're not going to report it, the only thing we can do is work on moving past it. He goes, oh, you just want me to forget it? No, I didn't say that. It's just so weird. He's just like, well, if you're not going to report it, then we need to work on you mentally processing it and getting through it emotionally. And she just goes, oh, you just want me to forget it? And he's like, no. And then she just fucking runs away. And, oh, I spilled my whiskey. I was so angry. Ow, my foot. And then she just runs away. And she's like looking at the door. Is he going to follow me? If he doesn't follow me, I'm going to kill myself. What? She's so toxic. Just kill yourself already. Piss off. If you're going to be that shit and that toxic, what an awful thing to do. And of course then he gets the blame, and he's eventually it's all going to come out, he's going to get fired. I mean, it is a great argument that yes, she should probably, I'm looking at my notes as I say this, he should probably have referred this, right? He probably should have escalated this. But there is no indication that he hasn't escalated it. It just hasn't come to the parents yet. It's like she kills herself like that night, I think. When would he have had time? It's the end of the day. When would he have had time to escalate this? It's so weird. And what's weirder is that I see people online agreeing with Hannah that the counsellor's to blame. In the previous bit, she just lets herself be raped for no reason. She's just like, I'm going to go and get sex to be raped and get raped. I don't really care, I don't really feel anything. I'm going to kill myself, so I might as well let someone enjoy my body or something. Which is so creepy. And she goes to this jacuzzi, and the rape guy, who's like the town's rapist, it seems, who rapes everybody, goes, hello, I'm not going to sleep with this girl, I'm just going to rape you, and then just starts raping her, and she just goes, okay, and then she walks home. That's it. It's so freaking weird. The base message at the very end, which is look out for people who might be considering suicide and maybe help them, is good. But the other parts of the book, every other aspect, is garbage. The characterization, garbage. The writing, pretty poor. The moral within the entire book, which is that killing yourself is somehow good or something. I just don't understand how this text exists. And frankly, I feel upset that I read it. My life is worse. Truly, patently worse. The other reason on my channel that I didn't like, I realised I've been reading pretty negatively books recently. I wouldn't say my life is worse for having read them. My life is worse. Actively, fully worse. And it really upsets me. There's not even any good turn of phrases, there's not even any good, like, really poignant moments. It's just garbage. It's just bland, poolside drivel with a toxic message that somehow went viral and exploded. And it pisses me off. Really upsets me, man. I think mental health is very important. I think being aware of the potential for suicide is very important. And it really upsets me when it's considered trivially. I know the show hasn't helped, but this book really trivialized mental health and suicide and makes it into some power fantasy with a weird fixation on purity and virginity, and it upsets me. That's all I have to say. I don't know. I've just become upset. This book has truly upset me, and I don't really know why and how to deal with it, other than to say, wait, I don't like it, it distresses me. Yeah, if people in your life are struggling with mental health, or you yourself are struggling with mental health, you owe it to yourself, first of all, not to read this text, ever. But also to reach out to someone. And that's really the message, is that mental health is precarious and fickle. and a bastard. But it is also precious, and we need to foster good mental health and foster awareness of it. And if this book was created with that in mind, to try to foster awareness of mental health, good. I guess that's nice. But instead it has brought suicide a new image, which is that it is somehow good to show everybody, quote unquote, what they did to you and then off yourself. And it is no surprise and no bloody coincidence that within a few months of this book's publication, the suicide rate skyrocketed amongst everywhere it was published. Skyrocketed. There are genuinely several hundred people who would be alive were it not for this book. And I think that's an evil, frankly. I think this book is evil. I think it easily could have not been evil. I think it needed to focus on the different aspects of suicide, and I think it needed to talk about how the main character is wrong. But it doesn't. It dramatizes it. There is one point within the text when he goes to, because he's visiting all the locations along with the narration by Hannah. But at one point he goes to the house where basically there's like this peeping Tom carriage, and that's what drove her. So one of the things that drove her to suicide is a feeling of a lack of safety in her own home. And it turns out that people have been smashing this guy's windows every single time along the way. It's become a tradition of everyone else somehow in this week. It's become a tradition for everyone to smash his window. And then one of the guys there just spends all his time just watching the window of his neighbour because he's also on the tapes. This is very confusing. He just doesn't make sense. It's like, yeah, I saw you coming, so I assumed I knew you'd be coming because you're on the tapes. But it's like, well, you're on the tapes, I knew. Yeah, but I didn't listen to them. And he goes, what? And he goes, what do you mean you're not even listening to them? And he's like, she doesn't deserve it. It was her choice to kill herself. Nothing to do with me. Hell yeah! Absolutely. Good for him. And he's like an asshole. And it then comes out later and then it tries to make it seem like he was wrong and he's not taking responsibility. But no, I don't even remember his name, but I agree with him. Screw Hannah. Go to hell. Kill yourself. Nothing to do with me. These people did not drive her to suicide. Okay? She killed herself. It was wrong as well that people didn't realise that she was suffering. There's nothing wrong with suffering. There's nothing wrong with being in pain. But there is something wrong in committing suicide, I would argue. I'm not talking about sin or God or whatever. I'm just saying it's not a good thing. It's not anyone's fault but hers. And it was up to her, ultimately, to get help when it was offered to her multiple times. And she chose not to. And that's sad. That's very sad. But it's not their fault. Also, the main concept of the book doesn't make any sense because he's going through the whole book thinking, oh no, I'm on this, how did I drive her to death? And she gets to him, and she's like, yeah, I don't know why you're on here, I just put you on here, you're not responsible, you were actually quite nice, I just didn't want to date you, sorry, don't know why you're on here. And it's just so, it doesn't make any sense at all. Oh, didn't like the book, don't read it, 1 out of 10, don't read it. I'll be upset with you. If you read it, I'll be upset with you. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for watching. I was Aldra Hill. This is Aldra's Life. We've rebranded the channel. We've got a new logo, new stuff. I'd really appreciate it if you do subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching. More book reviews next week.